All right, buckle up, everybody, because we're taking a deep dive today into a Voyager classic, Future's End.
Ooh, yeah.
It's a two-parter, right? We got the excerpts ready to roll. And this one really digs into time travel and the ripple effects of just, well, one starship.
I think it's one of the best Voyager episodes for playing with those classic time travel tropes,
Yeah.
but with a very Star Trek spin on them.
Right. Like, it's not just don't step on a butterfly. It's how do you fix a future disaster you're accused of causing?
Exactly. It's a fantastic premise.
So we start, Voyager gets hurled back in time, 1996 Earth. They're trying to blend in, get their bearings. But that goes out the window when Captain Braxton shows up.
Yeah, Braxton. He's our time traveler from the 29th century. And he's got some bad news for Voyager.
Bad as in.
Bad as in, he's there to destroy them. He believes they're responsible for this massive temporal explosion that'll basically wipe out Earth's solar system centuries down the line.
Oh, okay. Temporal explosion. So not just like a supernova or something, but like, what does that mean in Star Trek terms?
Right, so it's basically a huge rupture in space-time, a catastrophic event that, could rewrite history as we know it, potentially. You could have entire civilizations just gone.
So yeah, bad. Got it. But then, this is where things get really, really interesting. Braxton's attempt to blow up Voyager, that's actually what starts the chain of events leading to the disaster he's trying to prevent.
Right. It's a classic time travel paradox for sure.
It's like cosmic irony, right?
Exactly. And he gets so fixated on stopping Voyager that he doesn't see how he's making things worse.
So Voyager manages to disable his weapon. He crash lands back in 1967, end of story, right?
Yeah.
Except, not really. Because he discovers his time ship, the Aeon, has been stolen.
And that theft, it just throws everything wide open. I mean, this is where the episode really digs into those ripple effects you mentioned.
Oh, for sure. And the guy who stole it, Henry Starling, CEO of this company, Chronoworks Industries, he's a complicated character, to say the least.
He is. I mean, you could argue he's brilliant.
Yeah.
He finds Braxton's crashed time ship right back in '67 and uses that tech to kickstart the microcomputer revolution. So he's speeding up progress by, decades?
Yeah, he's a visionary, but also kind of playing with fire. Like, you mess with the timeline that much.
Right. It makes you think about, the tech world today, too. We've got these brilliant minds pushing boundaries with AI. You've got genetic engineering. All this stuff has incredible potential, but...
Oh, maybe some serious risks, too.
Exactly. Like Starling, these innovators might have the best intentions, but what about the unintended consequences?
Yeah, it's a chilling thought. And in the episode, it's Voyager's job to, clean up this mess, stop Starling, and stay hidden from 20th century eyes.
Which, that leads to some hilarious moments.
Oh, I love the fish out of water stuff. Tuvok in 1990s culture, it's priceless.
I could just picture him trying to figure out, grunge fashion.
Right. But it's not all fun and games. I mean, Voyager's trying to stay under the radar, but they do have to use their 24th century tech sometimes.
Clever uses, though. Remember when they used the deflector dish to avoid those satellites?
Yeah, and those holographic disguises for the away team?
Yeah.
But even with all of that, the stakes are huge, right? One wrong move, they could expose themselves, screw up the timeline even more.
Or get themselves destroyed right then and there. It's this constant balancing act.
Totally. And it's not just the external threats either. You've got Braxton, who's gone kind of, paranoid, to put it mildly.
He really does spiral. It's sad to see. I mean, here's this determined time traveler, and now he's convinced the world's ending because of him.
Right. But while all this is happening, back on Voyager, in orbit, they pick up a signal. And this is where things get even more complicated.
That signal, it's coming from Earth, specifically an observatory. There's this astronomer, Rain Robinson, and she's been tracking Voyager's warp signature.
It's funny. Even in 1996, pre-smartphones and all, Star Trek always has someone with their homemade tech setup ready to pick up alien signals.
It's that human curiosity, right? Rain, she represents that drive to explore, to understand the universe, even if it means bumping into a starship from the future.
Which, for Voyager, that's a bit of a problem. They're trying to be inconspicuous, and suddenly they've got this 20th century astronomer on their tail.
Adds a whole new level of tension to their mission. Janeway has to figure out, how do you deal with this without blowing their cover or messing with the timeline even more?
So, what's the plan?
Tuvok and Paris get sent down to the observatory, investigate, see what's what. And this is where, we get those fun fish-out-of-water moments.
Oh, gotta love those. Always enjoy seeing how Starfleet officers handle a completely different culture, especially Tuvok, Mr. Logic, and control himself.
Right. Can you imagine him trying to explain warp drive to Rain? using only like 1996 science.
Ooh, good point. It'd be like trying to teach a toddler quantum physics. Speaking of explanations, though, things get a little dicey when Paris accidentally lets slip a bit too much terrain. She starts getting suspicious, like, these guys aren't who they say they are.
Yeah, it shows you how delicate these time travel stories are. One tiny slip-up can have huge consequences. The butterfly effect in action, right?
Totally. But speaking of ripples, while Paris and Tuvok are dealing with that, they get another unexpected visitor.
Dunbar, head of security for Starling. And he's definitely not there for a meet and greet. He tries to take them out, with a future weapon no less, forces Tuvok, Terrace, and Rain to make a run for it.
It's action-packed, that's for sure. But back on Voyager, they make a discovery. Starling's downloaded a huge chunk of their computer core, including the Doctor's program.
It's a bit of a turning point for Starling, I think.
Yeah.
Shows he's not just reckless, he's, well, kind of ruthless. Exploit whatever advantage he can get.
Yeah, scary how quickly he goes from visionary to straight-up villain. Almost like the tech itself corrupted him in a way. Makes you wonder about that whole power corrupts thing.
It's a theme that runs through a lot of Star Trek, right?
Oh.
Technology is a tool. It can be used for good or not so good. It all depends who's holding it.
True, true. And speaking of holding things, Starling doesn't just steal the Doctor's program. He actually inflicts pain on the EMH, messes with his tactile sensors. It's pretty disturbing.
Really is. It makes you think about AI, sentience. If a hologram can feel pain, is it just a program or something more?
Deep stuff. Thankfully, the EMH, he doesn't break. He keeps his cool, doesn't betray Voyager, Doctor first, right?
Absolutely. Ethics before everything. But then Starling's got to make a quick getaway from Chronoworks. And he takes the EMH with him, gives him a mobile emitter, too.
Oh, so now the EMH is out in the world. That's got to be huge for him, like freedom he's never had before.
Totally. But while he's experiencing that back on Earth, Voyager's trying to stop Starling from escaping with the timeship. They manage to beam him away from this Metro Plaza event. But during transport, Starling, he activates this device, scrambles their systems. Clever guy.
Always one step ahead, isn't he? And while they're dealing with that setback, Chakotay and Torres, their shuttle crashes in Arizona.
Which leads to this whole subplot with the survivalists.
Yeah.
Really interesting because it touches on some of those cultural anxieties of the late 20th century, you know?
Oh, yeah. They think Chakotay and Torres are government agents. It's a mistaken identity thing, but also...
reflects real-world fears, right?
Yeah.
Back then, there was a lot of concern about government overreach, technology being used for control.
Definitely adds another layer to the episode. But back in LA, things are coming to a head. Starling's ready to launch the timeship. Voyager's running out of options.
You can feel the tension building. The fate of the future is literally hanging in the balance. And Voyager has to stop him without revealing themselves to the whole world.
Ultimate time travel dilemma. How do you intervene without changing history? I guess we'll find out in part 3. So, Starling's about to launch this timeship. Voyager's got to stop him, but how? It's down to the wire here.
Right, and their weapons are still offline. So Janeway, she realizes their only option is to manually launch a photon torpedo at the timeship, which means she has to climb inside the launch tube.
Whoa. That's pretty intense. Janeway really putting herself out there. But how's she even going to manage that?
It's risky, that's for sure. And to make things worse, during the launch sequence, she gets knocked unconscious. It looks bad.
Oh, no. So what happens?
Just when it seems like it's over, the EMH shows up.
The EMH? Wait, he was with Starling, wasn't he?
He was, but now he's got that mobile emitter, remember? He's got freedom to move around, and he uses it to come to Janeway's rescue.
That's incredible. So the EMH is not just a hologram anymore. He's like an active player in this whole time travel crisis.
Exactly. It really shows how much he's grown, how much he cares about the crew. He even gets Ensign Kaplan from engineering to help him reach Janeway. It's a real team effort.
Love that. But while they're dealing with the torpedo, what's Starling up to?
He's back at Chronoworks, ignoring Voyager's warnings, and he's getting ready to launch the timeship. From a rather interesting spot, actually.
Yeah.
The roof of his skyscraper.
The roof? Why the roof?
Part of its ego, I think. Starling, he wants to make a statement, a big show, but it also shows how little he cares about the consequences. He's so focused on his goals that he doesn't even see the danger.
Blinded by ambition. So this puts Chakotay in a tough spot. Does he risk revealing Voyager to the world by firing on Starling? Or let him escape into this temporal rift?
It's a huge dilemma, right? Does the end justify the means? Can they sacrifice the timeline to save themselves? In the end, Chakotay decides the risk of that temporal explosion is just too great.
He makes the call to fire.
Yeah. And just as the time ship's about to enter the rift, the torpedo hits. Destroys it in a huge explosion.
Wow, talk about a close one. But so is that it? Is the crisis averted?
Not quite. Because as the rift closes, guess who steps out?
Ooh.
Captain Braxton.
Braxton. But they disabled his time ship way back when. How's that possible?
This isn't the same Braxton. This one's from a different timeline. One where Voyager's actions didn't lead to his, breakdown.
Hold on, multiple Braxtons. This is getting a little timey-wimey, even for me.
Time travel, right. But this Braxton, he's here to help. He's been sent by the Temporal Integrity Commission. They're basically the time cops, making sure things run smoothly.
Oh, okay. So what do they do with Voyager? Send them to space jail?
Nah. This Braxton, he returns them to their proper place in the Delta Quadrant, lets them continue their journey home.
Well, that's a good ending, at least. But this whole episode, man, it's been a wild ride. We've had time travel paradoxes, tech theft, ethical dilemmas, even a mobile EMH. What are some of the big things we should take away from all this?
I think Future's End really highlights how even small choices can have huge consequences, especially when you're messing with time travel. And that whole idea of technology, how it can be both a blessing and a curse. Starling's a perfect example of what happens when ambition goes too far.
Yeah, good points. It makes me think about, our own world. With AI getting more advanced, gene editing, all that, we need to be careful not to create our own temporal explosions.
Exactly. We have a responsibility to use our knowledge and power wisely, think about the long-term impact of our actions. That's what Future's End is all about, in a way.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive. Thanks to everyone for joining us as we explored this Voyager classic. It's been fun, and hopefully we've sparked some interesting thoughts along the way. Until next time.